Hey guys, this is Austin from Jones Bros Garage, back today for another great video, and today I'm going to be teaching you how to ride a motorcycle. So getting on a motorcycle and riding for your first time can be a little bit intimidating, but I promise you it's really easy. But don't get me wrong, motorcycling as a whole is not something that's easy. It's an art form. It takes decades to master if you ever truly can master it, and the more you learn, it seems like the more there is to learn and the more intricate it gets. But today we're just going to cover the basics that will get you on a bike, get you out on the road, and keep you safe. The most important thing to remember with all of this is that riding a motorcycle is gentle. Even if you want to go fast, you never want to be aggressive. You don't want to do your braking, your throttle, your turning. None of it's aggressive. It's all gentle, kind of like a dance. You ease into it. It's not something that you just are aggressive with. It's all just gentle, smooth, controlled movements. That's the biggest thing to remember before we get started on this bike. Okay guys, like I said, we'll go ahead and assume that you know nothing. So the first step will be to get familiar with the bike. And this is actually a good thing to do with any bike you ride, but especially when you're a beginner. So you got your key and your ignition, obviously. It'll be in different spots on different bikes. You turn it, pretty standard, could figure that out. Now one tip I'll give you guys is that you should get on your bike from the side that the kickstand's on, especially if you're a shorter rider or you have a taller bike like this one for me, because if you get on from the other side, you're stepping higher and the bike's already at an angle this way. That's not something you always have to follow, but it's something you should know before you start. So for me, I'm a shorter rider, so I actually have to pick the bike up, put the kickstand up, and then get on. And something else I'll mention to you guys is you don't have to flat foot. You could see I am just barely tippy-toed on one side, and on the other side, yeah, I can't even touch. So you don't have to flat foot, but if it's your first time riding, you'll probably want to. That just depends on what bike you decide to start on. So just get yourself comfortable in the seat, feel what it's like to have your feet up on the pegs and feel all the controls, which we'll go ahead and cover now. Here at your left hand will be your clutch, and you have to use this to engage gears. Here on your right hand will be your front brake, which is your most important brake. Majority of your braking comes from the front brake. And then you have the throttle, obviously. Now, here will be your, basically to turn your electronics on. And then right here is the switch to start the bike. Some bikes will be a little bit different, but they'll all be pretty somewhat similar to this. Over on your left side, you have turn signal, left, right, and then click it to cancel. Then down here you have your horn, high beam, low beam, and you might have some other things like power settings and all that, but it just depends on the bike. What's important on the dash, you'll have an in, like a green in, that'll show you if you're in neutral, which is important. And also a little light that shows if your turn signal's on. Most bikes will have that. The other thing you could possibly have is a choke if your bike is carbureted, and that just assists the bike to start when it's cold, basically. We won't go too in depth since that's not what this is about. So down here at your left foot, if you guys can see, you'll have your shift lever. This is what you use to shift gears. And down here at your right foot is your rear brake, which you use in conjunction with the front brake I mentioned earlier. So once you're on your bike, you're comfortable with everything, you're good with the seating position, we'll go ahead and turn it on. You might be in first gear or in a gear, and if you are, your neutral light won't be on like that. See how it's dark? And your neutral light, it could be like on the dash somewhere here, or maybe you won't have it, but most bikes will. you could try clicking down all the way until first gear, and then halfway up between first gear and second gear, you'll find neutral. And once you're in neutral, the bike will be good to start without the clutch. Now, sometimes you will have to use the clutch depending on your bike. So we'll just say, no matter what, pull your clutch in, make sure this switch is on, and start the bike. All right, the bike is started, and we know we're in neutral. So to engage first gear, you click down on the shift lever, and then every gear from there is up. So it's 1 down, and then 2 up, 3 up, 4 up, etc. So 1 is your bottom gear. So make sure you're in first gear, and you basically want to position yourself on a long straight path and just practice slowly releasing that clutch, and you'll start moving. And you guys don't even have to use throttle. You could practice this just with the clutch, and it'll be enough to get the bike moving. So you're holding your brakes basically so you don't move, and then slowly release it, and then you could release your brakes, and you'll feel the bike start moving, and then you'll start moving. There you go. Just keep practicing that over and over. And when you come to a stop, use both brakes, nice and smooth, just gentle. Now, it's good to start this on a nice flat surface. I'm currently going uphill. After you get a hang of releasing this clutch on a downhill or a flat surface, you could start practicing uphill. Uphill is a little more challenging. You have to hold it a little bit longer and give it a little bit more gas. If you let the clutch out too quickly, you will stall, which is not the end of the world. It's just like this. Boom, the bike is stalled. No big deal. It can be scary when you're a beginner, but all you got to do is hold the clutch in, press the start button. There you go, and then try again. The big tip I have for you guys is a lot of people, they like to get it started like this and then just drop the clutch and it stalls like that. That's obviously not what we're going for here. You want to make sure you hold that clutch until you're maybe 20 or 30 feet from where you're starting. What I mean is, I'll show you. So I'm starting to release the clutch, still holding the clutch, still holding the clutch, still holding the clutch, and let go. You want to be very smooth and gentle. As I mentioned, everything on a motorcycle is about being smooth and gentle. It's like a dance. Now, that is one of the hardest parts of starting to ride a motorcycle. If you drive a manual car, then you might find this a little bit easier because you're used to controlling your clutch with your left foot, and now it'll be your hand, which is a lot easier to control, if that makes sense. But for some of you, this will come natural. For others, this will be a little bit difficult. But just keep practicing it until you master it without ever stalling. And I recommend, we're on an uphill angle here, before you go out on the road, practice on an uphill like this. It doesn't have to be steep, just a slight incline, because you will come to hills when you're on the real road, you know, and you don't want to panic. Okay guys, so now you know how to start moving from a stop. Naturally, the next thing you're going to want to do is be able to shift up to the next gear. So you'll be able to, once you've mastered the rolling start from a stop, you're going to go ahead and start riding. Okay, you're riding. Now pull the clutch in, click up to second gear, let the clutch out. You're now in second gear. And then you can hold the clutch in, you could click down to first, and you could try that again. We'll show it again. I'll show my foot this time. So you're going to get rolling in first gear. Okay, you're rolling. Now hold the clutch in, second gear, let the clutch out. You're in second gear. Now hold the clutch in, come to a stop, click it back down to first gear, and try again. This is basically it, guys. This is how you'll shift every gear on a motorcycle. And I know we haven't covered turning yet, but I'm assuming you know how to ride a bicycle, so you're probably doing somewhat all right with turning around a parking lot. We will cover turning in a minute, but anyhow, I'm assuming you kind of get the gist on how to turn. You don't need to be an expert yet, obviously. So just go ahead and ride around for a little bit and, you know, play with those gears. Your first gear starts up to second, maybe up to third, and every time you want to stop, just hold that clutch in, come to a stop, and click it back down to first. Alright, there you go. So what about downshifting? Well, you want to make sure you're good with your upshifts first, okay? Because this method I just showed you as a beginner can always work. For instance, I could be riding, I'm in second gear, right? Oh, I need to stop. Clutch in, brakes. Now I'm stopped. I'm still in second gear. I could click back down, no big deal. You don't have to downshift to stop as a beginner, but you obviously do need to be able to upshift. That's why I say make sure you're comfortable with this first. Now, with that said, let me switch into the lower power setting on my bike. Okay guys, so with that said, we will cover downshifts anyhow. So you're in first gear, second gear. Let's say you want to shift down to first. The first thing you could do to learn is clutch in, first gear, slowly release the clutch and slowly give it gas. Try that again. Show you again. Alright, we're in first gear, second gear, clutch in, click down to first, slowly release the clutch. There you go. You've just shifted down a gear. Now this isn't the optimal way to downshift either, but this is a step up from just holding in the clutch until you're stopped. So you could practice that for a while, and if you get a hang of that, you're eventually going to do something called rev-match downshifting. That is where basically you pull in the clutch, click the gear down, give it a quick rev, and then release the clutch. What that does is, so you'll be at a certain RPM. You'll have, I can't show you this because I don't have a tachometer, but your bike will probably have a tachometer, and it, you know, it counts, for instance, from 0 RPM to 8,000 RPM. And that's how you guys know when you need to shift, by looking at that tachometer. It's different for every bike, so I can't give you guys like an exact time for when you'll need to shift. You're just going to have to get a feel for it. It will be different on any bike, but your tachometer, as you accelerate, it'll go up, you know. So what rev matching downshift will do is, say you're in second gear, and if you just bash it down to first gear and dump the clutch, you're going to be spiking to a higher RPM, and it could lock your rear wheel up. Don't be afraid, guys. It's not going to be a big deal if you're at low speeds or you're on a bike that doesn't have a lot of power. This isn't necessarily something you have to worry about, but that is why we rev match downshift. So the way it works is, show you, I'm in first gear, now I'm in second gear. Now let's say I need to downshift. Clutch in, kick down, rev, clutch out. That's basically it. Show you again. And I'm showing you like really slow right now, just so you understand the steps. So I'm cruising in second gear. I need to go to first. Clutch in, click down, rev, release. Now, you can't do it that slow. It has to be all one motion, like this. First gear to second gear. You could hear the bike kind of start to engine brake because you've gone up RPMs and the bike is pulling its RPMs back down. I know this all seems really complicated, guys, but I'm telling you, you don't need to know how to rev match downshift as a beginner. This is something that maybe you watch this video and do some of these drills, you could come back to and practice this, and you'll have to get a feel for, you know, depending what gear you're in and what gear you're going down to, you need to rev harder or lighter. You'll get a feel for that. I know this all might sound complicated, but you really do get a feel for it over time. I know this is a lot, but I'm telling you, after a while, you'll understand what I'm saying. You just get a feel for your bike. The next thing you need to learn is braking. Again, this is a skill that you could be a beginner at, or you could be advanced. And there's some drills you can practice and some tips I can give you. So basically, I already touched on this, but what's important to remember is that 70% of your braking power is in your front brake. This front brake is a majority of your stopping power. So you always want to be using this front brake. You also have your rear brake that you use in conjunction with your front brake. You use them together at the same time. Again, like I said, everything on a bike is a dance. This especially is true with the brake. You want to slowly ease onto your brake and apply more and more force as you're coming to a stop. Same with the rear, slow and steady, just like this. Try to get you guys a good view. More and more pressure until you're at a stop. And obviously you want to use a couple fingers here. Some people use 2, some use 3, whatever you're comfortable. I like 2. So just a little bit more and more force until you're at a stop, and then hold it. So, go ahead and show you guys what that looks like. Even if you need to stop fast, you still be gradual and smooth. Coming up to this stop sign, maybe I wasn't paying attention. Oh crap, I need to stop. Gradual and smooth. See how fast I can stop? And now you guys want to practice this. This is something that can save your life, is good brake technique. Obviously, you can buy cones and measure your distances, your stopping distance, but I like parking lots that are empty because you have these lines. So we'll say I'm going 15 and stop. And I could try to stop quicker and quicker, less and less lines. You could practice this from different speeds, but you always just need to remember both brakes at the same time, nice and smooth onto them, even if you're stopping hard. And stop. There we go. Now, if you guys are on a more powerful bike, like say this bike right here, then your brakes will be more powerful and you need to be more gentle with them, because if you don't have ABS, which don't get me wrong, this bike does, most new bikes do, but if you don't have ABS, you will do a little stoppy if you press them too hard. Shouldn't be an issue as a beginner practicing, because you're probably not going to get anywhere near the amount of force that you're going to need to be able to do a stoppy, especially at the low speeds that you'll most likely be practicing at. But I'm just warning you guys about that. And the rear tire, if you press it too hard, will lock up and slide. And the main way that you get these two things to happen, guys, are not being smooth and gradual. It's not about pulling the brake lever too hard. It's about pulling it too abruptly. Like, let me show you. For instance here, come to a quick stop. I didn't activate my ABS. I didn't stoppy. And I had the brake lever completely squeezed as hard as I can. The reason is because even though I stopped quickly, I was very gradual. If you guys just, boom, grab a fistful of front brake, that's when you could have issues. You just slam that rear brake, that's when you could have issues. That's why practicing this in a parking lot can save your life, because if a deer or something runs out in front of you and you need to stop, you don't want to just panic and just grab a handful of brake. You still want to ease into the brake. Now you could do it quickly. obviously, like I've been showing, but you do need to ease into it. So another tip that I would like to give you guys about braking is this. I'm coming up a hill and I need to stop, okay? Let's say there's a stop sign right here. Let's pretend. I'm at the stop sign, right? I'm using my rear brake to hold the bike. If I let this rear brake go, look at that. You guys see this? We're rolling backwards. Obviously, you don't want that. So you're going to hold this rear brake or your front brake, whatever you're comfortable with. But I would recommend the rear because our next step is going to be to slowly start releasing the clutch, slowly give it some gas, and when you feel the bike start wanting to move, then let go of the brake. You guys understand that? So what we're going to do is, holding your rear brake, slowly release the clutch, slowly give it gas, nice and smooth, coming up a hill, and again, take your time releasing that clutch. That is how you guys are going to be able to start and go up a hill. That's something that's usually generally pretty scary for new riders, and even for experienced riders coming onto a big heavy bike for the first time, that could be intimidating. So that is one tip I can give you guys. You could go ahead and practice that out in a parking lot or maybe in your neighborhood before you go out and ride, because you could run into a situation where maybe you're stopped in traffic or something and you're on a hill. You don't want to be panicking. You want to know what to do. You just hold that rear brake and just ease off the clutch and ease onto the throttle. Nice and slow and smooth. Okay guys, if you got to this point in the video, maybe you practice some of these drills or you're watching to go practice them later, that's awesome. You now know how to stop from a start, shift up gears, shift down gears, and brake. That means you only have a few things left to learn to be able to ride on the road. And you might guess the most important one is turning the motorcycle. It may seem like this is pretty obvious, but actually a lot of riders crash, and unfortunately a lot of people do die from failing to navigate a turn. So, some tips for turning, okay? Just practice in a parking lot like this. Low speed turns. You want to look where you're going. And guys, I'm telling you, when I say that you need to look where you're going, I mean like strongly over exaggerate. Really, really, really look where you're going. Your bike wants to follow your eyes. Believe me, your body position moves with your eyes, as does your bike. So you could just practice really, really looking and turning with the bike. It might feel weird at first if you're not used to this. You can practice it going left, practice it going right. If you're in a parking lot like this, then you might have some actual turns that you can practice. And you always want to be looking far, far ahead of you, and also where you want to go. Even when you're going straight, you want to be looking pretty far down the road. This is something I'll mention now. Target fixation. You don't want to stare at something in the road that you're trying to avoid. This kind of goes along with turning. If there's a big pothole in the road, you don't want to stare at it, guys, because it causes target fixation. Like I'm saying, your eyes, your bike will follow your eyes. If you stare at something, you will naturally start heading towards it. That's why when you're turning, you want to really look into the turn. And when you're going straight, you want to look nice and far down the path ahead of you. That'll allow you to see things far before they happen, such as animals running out, cars pulling out. Believe me, these things will happen to you eventually on a motorcycle. You want to be prepared for these before they happen. So you're looking ahead. Practice your turns. Go ahead, look left, turn left. Okay? Nice. Look right, turn right. And eventually, you can put these together and start practicing figure eights. You just want to keep practicing your figure eights. Oh yeah, tighter and tighter. And now to go along with this, advice I can give you guys is, for low speed stability, you could drag your rear brake a little bit. Just keep a little bit of pressure on that rear brake, and it helps keep the bike upright at slower speeds. Now, aside from practicing your quicker turns for riding on roads, you want to be proficient at your slow speed maneuvers for parking lots and such. So if you just drag a little bit on that rear brake, you could pretty much eventually balance the bike even at a stop or close to a stop. You see how slow I'm going right now while turning? This is going to take you guys some practice. It's all in your eye positioning, body positioning, and dragging that rear brake really will help you out. Okay guys, so once you feel like you have a good hold of your turning, looking through turns and everything, I'm going to go ahead and let you know about something that I think that beginner riders should know right off the bat and people aren't always aware of. When you turn a motorcycle at, higher speeds, and by higher speeds I mean probably above 25 miles per hour, it depends on the weight of your motorcycle, you're actually not turning towards the turn, you're turning away from the turn. I'll show you guys an example of what I mean. If I have my bike here, well, it's probably not the best place to show you because it's on a bit of an angle. Okay, here we go. So if I have my bike here, right, and I turn the bars this way and I start letting go, the bike wants to fall that way. Okay? Now, if I turn the bars the other way, the bike wants to fall towards me. When you turn the bars in the wheel right, the bike wants to lean left. When you turn the bars in the wheel left, the bike wants to lean right. This is actually how you ride a bicycle, and this is the reason why it's hard for kids to learn how to ride a bicycle for the first time without training wheels. Because in a vehicle with multiple wheels, like a car, or example, a tricycle, you always are turning, you're never counter steering. So at low speeds on a motorcycle, you could see I'm turning right, my bars are turned right. Turning left, my bars are turned left. On low speeds, that's how it works on a motorcycle. That is also how it works in a car, obviously, and a bike with training wheels. So you gain a little speed on a motorcycle, that's no longer the case. You're coming to a turn faster. Now, you're actually going to be pushing the bars the opposite of the direction you're traveling in, if that makes sense. You'll be pushing the bars towards the right to turn left and towards the left to turn right. This is something that you will do automatically if you know how to ride a bicycle, because this is actually how you do ride a bicycle. So this isn't something that you're going to think about. And that's why I think beginners need to know this, and why I think that this is a problem. Because when you ride a motorcycle, that's not something that you're thinking about, okay? You don't think about the fact that you're counter steering in the opposite direction that you're heading. And that could get people into trouble. As I mentioned, crashes and fatalities are very common because people will be coming into, let's say, a left-hand turn. They're coming into it too fast. They don't know what to do. They try to turn the bars more towards the turn, right? And that makes you run wider. It's hard to show you in a parking lot on this specific bike because I can't really safely get up to the speeds that are needed to demonstrate this. But I promise you guys, if you're riding on public roads, this is how your bike is going to operate. So again, as I mentioned, I'll show you at a slower speed. Just picture I'm going faster. You're coming into a turn, you're turning, oh no, you're running too wide. So what do? You panic and turn more. That is going to cause you to go even wider. That is why that it is important that you understand countersteering, because if you're coming too fast into a turn and you're going to run it wide, you actually need to be pushing the bars the opposite direction of the direction you're trying to travel. I don't know if this all will make sense to you guys. I know it sounds a little more advanced for a beginner video, but I'm telling you guys, this is something that is very important for a beginner to know, because it's another thing that could save your life. You need to understand that at higher speeds, you are not steering the bike anymore like this. You're not just going the direction you turn. You will be countersteering and you will be heading the opposite direction of where you're turning, because the bike is wanting to fall the opposite way of where your wheel is going. A lot of things on a motorcycle, without practice, your instincts will kill you. Target fixation, looking at something you're trying to avoid, that's a natural instinct, that will cause you to hit it. Coming into a turn too fast, you try to turn more to compensate, that is going to cause you to run wide. You need to be countersteering the opposite direction you are heading. That leads me into my next point. You should practice swerving. If there's something in the road or something runs out at you at a lower speed, you're obviously going to turn in the direction that you need to go. So let's say there's a leaf here. Whoop, swerve out of the way. See this little cone down here? Say we're headed right towards it. What do? Swerve out of the way. Okay? At higher speeds, you will be countersteering. So if you need to turn left to avoid what's in front of you, then you're going to need to push the bars towards the right. On a bike, the main thing is, the reason you're gentle is because you don't want to overload the tires. You do not want to put too much load on a given tire at a given time. So anything that's going to overload the tires is going to cause loss of traction. That is why you don't want to brake and swerve at the same time. You pick one or the other. Either brake and then swerve, just brake, or just swerve. Do not hit your brakes and swerve. You will crash your bike. The tire just simply cannot handle all of that pressure. There's a lot of physics to it. I'm not going to go into that, but basically you only want to be doing one action at a time. And turning is actually considered an action. You know, it's putting force on your tires. So some more advanced things to know are you don't want to stab your brakes in a turn. People say that you can't brake while turning on a motorcycle. That's a myth for the most part. Don't get me wrong, you absolutely can crash from turning and braking at the same time. But you could still be coming into your turn and easing onto your brake. You just don't want to be adding an excessive amount of lean angle and an excessive amount of brakes at the same time. You just want to be gradual and smooth. Same thing with the throttle. If you're at a higher level of track riding, then yeah, you don't want to be stabbing your brakes after the apex of a turn or as you're adding a lot of lean angle. You also don't want to be adding a lot of throttle as you're increasing your lean angle. But that's more advanced, you know, at the low speeds that you'll probably be going as a beginner, you should be going as a beginner, you have a little more leeway because you're not going to overload the tires as easily. But general rule of thumb, you don't want to be braking or accelerating as you add lean angle. When you get out onto the road and you're coming up to a turn, like let's pretend we're out on the real road right now, and I'll show this in my demonstration. Say we're coming up to this left-hand turn down here. We need to slow down. Brake, then pick a gear, then start your lean, then slowly start accelerating out of the turn once you're leaned over. You don't want to do any two things at the same time. Now, of course, you could do things like trail braking and whatnot. If you're an advanced rider watching this for some reason, then you don't have to comment and say, hey, you know, that's not true, you could trail brake, this and that. I understand that, but I'm just talking for like the basics of riding for a beginner. You don't want to be overloading your tires. Try to just stick to one thing at a time. Brake, lean, throttle. Just like that. I'm telling you guys, if you see that you're coming up to a turn too fast, like right here, you don't think you're going to make the turn, first thing is get on the brakes, let go of the brakes, and really lean and trust your bike. That's another position that if you're a little reckless, you might find yourself in as a beginner. I actually found myself in that position. You don't want to turn and panic brake at the same time. One action at a time. Just focus, okay? If something scary happens on a motorcycle, it's important you stay calm and focus. If you're coming too fast to do a turn, just trust that your tires will grip, and remember to counter steer. You put that all together and you have a recipe for a great riding career. You know, these are really some great drills and some great techniques to practice as a beginner. You don't want to be overloaded with information. Just take it easy. These are the things that I highly recommend you learn as a beginner, especially counter steering. When you get more advanced, you know, you don't want to be building bad habits from the get-go, which is why I'm trying to cover as much as I can, because you want to build good habits right from the start. And of course, there's some things that I haven't really touched on, like the way you should hold the throttle. It's not like a caveman. It's like an ice cream cone, actually. There's a bunch of reasons for that, but other YouTubers such as Fort9 have great videos about that. Like I said, learning to ride a motorcycle is really easy, but when you get down into the more advanced things and learning to ride fast, learning to be very controlled, it gets very intricate, it gets very complicated. It takes years and years and years to master. I'm nowhere near a master rider. I just remember when I was a beginner, and I wish I would have known all of these things, and I wish I would have practiced all of these drills right from the get-go. Obviously, the MSF class is a great class. They teach you a lot of this. You do a lot of these drills, and they're really going to help you out. But just come out to a parking lot, watch this video, practice these drills before you go out, and when you feel confident with all of these, you feel confident on your bike, then we could go head out and we could hit the road. Okay guys, we'll just go ahead for a real short cruise, and I'll go ahead and show you how all this comes together. I have my camera angled slightly more down than I usually would in a moto vlog so that you can see the controls. So if you're wondering why the camera is angled a little bit down, that would be why. So coming up to the bike, I have to do my kickstand before the bike because I'm short, but usually you would mount the bike, then do the kickstand. And guys, if you go to start the bike, right, and it's not starting, make sure your kickstand is up, because most bikes, they have a special switch on them that they won't start if the kickstand is down and they're in gear. With that said, let's go ahead and start on our little cruise. So already right off the bat, clutch control. I have yet to let the clutch all the way out. Okay, now the clutch is all the way out. Here we go, guys. Already, we're stopping on a hill. I'm holding that rear brake in to stabilize myself. Looking both ways, obviously. Slow and steady as I turn using the clutch. Okay, second gear. Now, guys, there's important things too when it comes to traffic. You always want to make sure that you are thinking like you're invisible to other drivers, because you probably are. You don't want to ride in the center of the lane because that's where oil and crud tends to accumulate from other vehicles. So you want to be on the left side where a car tire would be, or the right side where a car tire would be. And that will be the best positions for you, and you want to take into account where you think you'll be the most visible. And always check your mirrors before you hit your brakes or come to a stop, you know. All right, we got our turn signal. Looking into the turn. Second gear. Third gear. Look at this, guys. We are riding a motorcycle. Very impressive. I want to show you guys, if I add a little speed, how... Watch me take this turn here. I don't know if it's very hard to tell on camera, I'm aware of that, but turn signal, by the way, and also don't accelerate like an idiot like that. I just want to demonstrate. It's hard to tell on camera, but if you were watching, my bars were turning the opposite direction of the way I was heading, and that was counter steering. Checking twice before we pull out. Slow clutch control, turn signals on, shut it off. Now we're in second gear, third gear. This is it now. Now we're just cruising. Just keep your eyes ahead. Remember your drills. And this is it. You're riding a motorcycle. Coming up to a turn, I'm going to brake. And then I'm going to lean. And I'm going to give it a little bit of throttle. I'm coming downhill a little bit. Next turn, I'm going to look ahead to where I want to turn into, lean the bike over. Okay guys, we're coming to a stop. So we got turn signal, smooth on the brakes, downshift, and then clutch in, nice and smooth on the brakes. Came to a stop. Now we're off again. Looking where we want to go with slowly releasing that clutch. Having good lane position. I prefer the left side of the lane right here because I could see into the turn earlier, and in case an animal would run out on the road, I have more time to react. That's just the kind of things you need to take into account. There's a dead animal on the road right there. I didn't stare at it because I didn't want to hit it. I just kept looking straight ahead, right through it. That's basically it, guys. You put all these drills together, and this is the kind of riding that you're going to be able to do, nice and safe. And don't get me wrong, guys, I'm not a saint. Even if you're going to speed and be reckless, it's very important to understand these fundamentals. Okay guys, so that was my take on the basics that you're going to need to know to ride a motorcycle. It's good to practice those drills, practice in a parking lot, in your neighborhood, whatever, until you feel comfortable, and then you could get out on the road. It doesn't matter if it takes you 2 hours, if it takes you 2 months. Everybody has their own pace. Whatever it's going to take you to feel comfortable and like you're going to be okay on the road, you're not going to be put in a panic situation. That's where you want to be before you go out and ride on the road. Hopping on the bike for the first time will probably be scary. Even riding on the road, like with traffic for the first time, will be scary. It's just important to remember that it's like that for everybody. Everybody's nervous their first time on a bike, but it's something that comes with time. It comes with practice. You just have to put in the seat time and put in the hours, practice some of these drills that I showed you, and you'll be good to go. So shout out to @SivMichaels for the video idea. He commented on one of my recent videos and he said, "Bro, I haven't even watched but a select few of your vids, and you're showing amazing support to your fans, and I just love that. I'm def subscribing. I don't know jack shit. You think you could maybe do a how-to 2022 on a bike? It seems fairly simple, it's just changing gears." So shout out to you for the video idea. Hopefully you watch this and you learn about what it's going to take to be able to ride a motorcycle. And hopefully if you're somebody watching thinking about riding, you could go ahead and pick up a bike and start learning. If you enjoyed that video, go ahead and give the like button a little finger action, and go ahead and give that subscribe button a click too while you're at it. That's really a great way you could support me, and I appreciate all of you guys. One great thing about me being a smaller channel, making a video like this, is I will answer all of the comments. Any questions you guys have, you could leave them below and I will answer. Doesn't matter if I get 5 comments, 5,000 comments. I'm telling you, anything that you need to know about riding, I will go ahead and answer in the comments. So ask anything you need to. Thank you guys for watching.